Hi, welcome to the UrbanCode Deploy API Connect version 2018 plugin tutorial. So we made some changes to the API Connect plugin for UCD so that we can support version 2018 of the API Connect server. Most of the steps are still very similar or exactly the same, but there are some minor differences that we're going to have to explain. So what I'm going to cover in this tutorial is, first of all, an overview of what's changed with the plugin, and then I'm going to go through the UrbanCode Deploy server and create a component template and an application template, which will easily help us work with API Connect version 2018. So we'll create a application template for products in API Connect, and then we'll create a component template to house the configuration of those products. And what I mean by house the configuration of those products is we're going to use those components to download product YAML files into CodeStation, so that when we actually run when we publish one of those products, we'll just download the YAML files directly from CodeStation that we've got from source config. And that's something I'll also be showing off during the demonstration here. So after we've configured all of that in UrbanCode Deploy, we're going to publish a new version of a product in API Connect that I've already gone ahead and deployed before. So I've already deployed version 1.0.0. We're going to import 1.0.1, and we're going to publish that from UrbanCode Deploy. And then also what we're going to do is we're going to show off the replace step and then the new Supersede step of API Connect, the API Connect plugin. So the first thing we're going to do is go into our UCD server and add some templates to make things a little bit easier. So my component template, which I've already created, I've called APIC product config. So as I mentioned in the intro, this is going to house the configuration of a product. And each component that's created off this template will be a separate product. So we'll go into this product config here, and we'll look at the configuration. So the first thing you'll notice is the source configuration type. So this is just how I've chosen to pull in my YAML files. I'm just using the file system version plugin. And there's a little bit of a difference between file system and file system version. Mainly, file system version is going to use directories as version names, which I like because the way that I'm creating my versions is I have, for example, this find branch directory, which is going to be the base path for my source config plugin, and then under that I have 1.0.0, 1.0.1. So if I wanted, anytime I want to make a new version, I just do make a new version 1.0.2, for instance. But I'm not going to do that for now. I've already created my new version for this tutorial. And if we look into one of these versions, all of the files that I need to publish a new product are already there. So here's my product configuration. Here's my product configuration, and then the API that product is going to use. So if we look at the product YAML, I have my find branch API is going to be referencing a file in the same directory. So let's go back to the server briefly. So let's take a look at the processes that I've already created for this component template. So when I create a new component using this template, it's going to have all these processes already by default. So the first very basic one I'm going to go through and explain is this publish product version. And this is just how we're going to publish our products. The basic gist of this is we're going to log in, download artifacts, publish a product using a definition file, and then log out. So let's briefly go through these. So if we take a look at the login step, we're leaving all the default values. So if you notice, as soon as I drag this API Connect login step here, there's some default values. And these are going to reference the component properties that I'm going to show you in a minute. So this APIC.server property, the username, and then the password is also referencing APIC.password. And then the realm, which is a new field that is required for version 2018 to connect with the toolkit. Sorry. So that was just to show you that it's using all of the default properties. And to take a look at those properties, we can go back to our component template and look at the configuration. And if we look down at the component property definitions, this is defining all of the properties that you need to supply when you create a new component. So for me, I've chosen to create all of these at the component level just to simplify this, this tutorial. I could go ahead and, if it made sense, I could create my APIC.server property maybe at the agent level, maybe even at the agent group level if all of my agents are going to be using the exact same server. If I have one APIC server, it might make sense to do that. Same thing with the realm or even the organization. It all depends on your setup, your API Connect setup. So for me, I'm just going to do everything in the component level. So I have my server, my realm, the product definition file. So this is just going to be the name of the file because I'm actually going to download it into CodeStation, which I'll explain in a second. Organization, the path to the toolkit, the catalog, plan mappings, which we're not going to use right now. This is going to be used when we do the replace and supersede steps. And this is actually going to be a text area where we map all the plans from the old product to plans from the new product, and then the username and password. So let's head back to that process and check out what's going on in here. So in the login step, we're referencing directly all those properties on our component, the server name, the username, password, the realm. And just in case you were wondering what server name you should be using, it's pretty easy to find if you go into your API Connect Cloud Manager URL. So if you go into the Settings tab, Endpoints, you're going to want the Platform REST API endpoint here, and you're just going to grab everything before /API. So this would essentially be the server URL that I'm integrating with. And then the realm, the realm's a little bit more difficult to find. It's not really in the UI anywhere in API Connect. You can use the toolkit to figure out which realms are available, but by default, I've listed the default realm in here for the provider. So it's going to be provider / default IDP2. And that's the one I'm going to be using in this demonstration. And this is only going to be used with API Connect version 2018. Because this login command would work for either 2018 or version 5. And the way that that's determined is the path to the toolkit. So my toolkit is actually a version 2018 toolkit. If I did indeed have a version 5 toolkit, the plugin automatically detects that, and then it changes the logic that's going to be run inside the plugin code. So all of the new code that I've added for version 2018 will only be executed if you're running a version 2018 toolkit. So it just makes it nicely backwards compatible with everything. And then the next part you're going to want to do, as I've mentioned, we're going to download our product YAMLs into CodeStation. So when the agent is actually running this process, it needs to download those YAMLs into the agent's working directory. So you just drag a download artifacts from our VFS plugin step. If we take a look at this, I've left all the default values. I'm just going to download everything from the version that I supply at runtime into the agent's working directory. This is the default working directory. And then the next step, we're going to publish using the product definition. So using those component properties again that I've mentioned, I've already kind of showed those off. The reason that we only need just the file name here is because I'm downloading it into CodeStation and then downloading the file directly in the agent's working directory. So that means we can use a relative path. So the agent's working directory is going to be the same throughout this process. So when I want to reference that file, I just say, in my case, it's going to be this, and I'll jump over here for a second. It's going to be this find branch product.yaml file. And that's what I will configure on my component when I create it using this template. And then everything else is very similar, the path. And then once you finish doing everything you want to do, the last step you're going to want to do is to log out. So I'm going to show you a component that I've already created using this template. For instance, if you wanted to create a new component after your template's done, you would just select the template. Mine is APIC product config, and it will ask you to fill in all of these properties here. So for me, we'll take a look at my find branch product config component. This is going to be configuration for this find branch product. And just to mention, find branch is an API that's provided in the tutorial in the Knowledge Center for API Connect. If you go to the API Connect product in the Knowledge Center, there's a pretty useful tutorial on how to create an API in API Connect, and I'm just creating a product to house that API. So if we go and look down at all the properties, I've kind of explained these briefly. The only other one I need to kind of make a little bit more mention of is this plan mappings. So for plan mappings, when you replace a product or supersede a product with another product, you need to specify every plan from the old product with the new product. So this means that the default plan of the old product is going to map to the default plan of the new product. The test plan of the old product is going to map to the test plan of the new product. And I just created this test plan to kind of show you how you can supply multiple plan mappings. So if we wanted to just keep adding more, we'd have to add just mappings separated by new lines like that. And the delimiter between the old and the new is this colon here. Okay, so the next thing I want to show off before we actually run the process is the application template that I've created. And this is pretty simple. All it's going to do is run those processes. So I just created an application template called APIC product. And the only thing that's going to be in it is the application processes. So if we look at the publish product application process, all it is just one step. And this is an install multiple components step. And if we look at the configuration, it's just going to reference the name of the component process, which if you remember from a minute ago in my component process, I named publish product version. So as simple as that, if there is a component in this application with process named publish product version, it is going to run it. So if we go back to the applications, I've already created an application using my template. So if we take a look here, we'll see all of the processes already exist from the application template, publish product, and they're all we'll use the default values that we've configured in our component when it's executing during runtime. A couple of other things you'll need to add is an environment. I've just created a dev environment. Usually you have the dev, prod, and test environments, but for me, I'm just doing everything in the developer environment. And then the component that you're going to add is the configuration for this application in my instance. So I have this find branch config, which I showed you before. I'm just going to add it to my find branch product application. And you'll create your environment and add an agent to it and the component. So now what's going to happen is when I run the published product, I've already ran with version 1.0.0, which is why you see it in the environment's inventory. But I'm just going to run it again just to run through the output briefly and show you what happens. So if we select 1.0.0, we'll deploy that. And let's look through the output. Here's my published product version component process. We can see that I've logged in successfully, and if we check out this output, we can see that it's pulling down all of the component properties, the APIC path, realm provider, the realm provider / default IDP2, server, username, everything that we need. And then when we publish the product definition, the output I've changed a little bit to provide some more information. So it shows what version of the toolkit it's detected initially, because it's going to look for both. If it finds that this is a version 5 toolkit you're supplying with this path, so this path is going to be the path to the toolkit, it'll show you version 5. So I've connected to a version 2018 toolkit. So once you run it, it will have this output tell you exactly the command that it's running. You can see it's running APIC publish with the YAML that I've provided from CodeStation, the server and everything like that. So everything went successful. So if we take a look at our API Connect server, and I've created this test organization as a sample organization for this demonstration. We have a find branch product 100, and it's been published. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually replace that with a new version that we're going to publish. Because if you remember, we'll go back to our component, because we have our find branch product config component. We already have a version 1.0.1 that's been imported. And I've ran this import new versions command, which will import it. Another way to automatically detect versions, if you go into your configuration of your component, you can go down here and should be all the way down at the bottom, this import versions automatically. So what this will do is when a new version is detected using the source config plugin of your choice, whichever you're using. In my case, I'm using this file system version plugin. So if I created a new directory in here, in this base path of the plugin, it would automatically detect that and create a version in CodeStation and pull whatever is in that directory. You could do the same thing with GitHub or SVN or whatever plugin that we have in here. So, but for me, I've already imported my 101, and it has a new product YAML and a new API YAML. So let's go through, let's go back to the template and kind of explain what's going on there with those two processes. So we have this replace product process, which it's going to start off with the login just like normal, using those component properties that I mentioned, and then the replace product in catalog step. So this existed in version 5 as well, and it exists in version 2018, but with the toolkit, the logic has changed a lot. So you don't really need to worry about it. We're kind of handling it all in the plugin. So you provide the exact same properties as server, organization, catalog, and then this old product and new product, this is going to be used to say what product needs to be replaced with what other product. So what you're going to have to do in here is you're going to have, I'll copy this away just for an explanation. I'll cut this away. So say my product is find branch product. The version I want to replace is 1.0.0. That's going to be my old product. And with the new product, maybe I have the same product but 1.0.1. So what's going to happen when this replace step runs, it's going to retire the old version and it's going to replace it with this new version. So what I'm doing is with these UCD properties is I've named my applications after the names of the products. So using this, it makes it a lot easier to configure. So you don't have to say, oh, every time I want to configure a new application, I have to specify an old product name and a old product version, and also what this version is. This previous version is a property in UCD that's going to be the previous version that was in the environment inventory. So right now in my environment inventory, I have version 1.0.0, and we can check this if we go into the application here. Open up my dev environment, so you can see the version currently in inventory is 1.0.0. So we'll go back to the template, and that's all I wanted to show you there. So So the old product will be the past version that was in an inventory, and when we deploy a new version, we're actually going to select that version. For instance, I'll select version 1.0.1, and that's going to be a property in UCD as well for version name. So I will replace find branch product 1.0.0 with find branch product 1.0.1. And this plan mappings is what I showed you before. And I've saved it as a component property, but you don't have to. What it's going to look like is just a list of properties here. So just for my product, I created this test plan, and the default plan already also exists, so you have to map that as well. But I like to keep it so that everything is at one level. So when I create new processes, I don't have to reference them again. It just makes things a lot easier. Okay, and then the last step we're going to do is always log out after we log in. So what we're going to do now is we're going to run this. Let's go to our application, find branch product. We're going to run it in dev. So let's go through and publish product and replace. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the latest available in this component. So my configuration has a version 1.0.1 available, and you can see it currently in the environment history. There's 1.0.0. So as I showed you before, that previous version property is going to reference this. The version property is going to reference this. That's the one I'm deploying with. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. So first what I've added is a published product. So we'll first go ahead and publish version 1.0.1 of the product, and then after that's published, we'll go ahead and replace it, which will, as I mentioned before, retire 100 and replace it with 101. So if we look at the replace output, it's mentioning that it's creating this product plan mapping file, and this is something you don't really have to be concerned with because the plugin logic will handle it for you. What it is when the plugin runs, it's actually going to use the old product, and it's going to grab the URL of the old product using the API Connect toolkit's list command, and it's going to create a plan mapping file which references the URL, and then it's going to have the plans also, which it's going to acquire from what you've provided, so that this plans field, we're going to specify the source plan and then the target plan in the mapping file. So again, you don't have to be concerned with that unless you're looking to try and manually run the toolkit yourself, which in that case I would recommend you check out the API Connect 2018 Knowledge Center. And one thing to mention is they don't have a lot around the API Connect 2018 toolkit yet, so it's kind of sparse information there. So right now we've successfully replaced the product in API Connect. So if we go ahead and look at our API Connect server, we'll see if we refresh here. Now I have my old product has been retired and my new product is in the published state. So we can do something very similar if we decide to supersede the product. So let's go back to our application. And just to mention, the application process that I've ran there is this publish product and replace, which is very similar to my publish product and supersede. So the first step that's going to run is this run publish product version. If we take a look at it, it's just another install multiple components step, which runs the exact name of the component process. Similarly, the run supersede application process step is just going to run the supersede product component process name. So if we want to go ahead and redeploy version 1.0.0, so we can instead supersede it instead of retiring it. We could go ahead and do that. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into my application, find branch product. I just have to make sure that 1.0.0 is in a published state. So we'll publish 1.0.0. And this is actually going to put it back in our environment's inventory. So we're downloading the old YAML again. We're publishing it, and everything should be good. So if we look back in API Connect, the old version is now published again. I'm not going to bother retiring 1.0.1, but I could if I wanted to. So if I wanted to completely remove it, I could retire it and remove it from the server. But the last thing I'm going to show you is how to supersede. So we're going to run our supersede application process, and we're going to select the latest version, which is 1.0.1. So we're going to supersede now the version that I redeployed in our environment inventory with the latest version, which is 1.0.1. So let's go ahead and do that. So first, because I've added this to make sure that the version 1.0.1 is published already, we're doing the publishing first. And then the supersede step comes next. So normally the workflow for this would be once a new version is detected in using our source config plugin, it will pull that in, and then after that it will run the either publish and supersede or publish and replace, whichever your use case is going to be. So we've superseded the old product with the new product now. So if we take a look, we should see 1.0.0 has been deprecated and 1.0.1 is still published. So great. So I hope this tutorial has been very helpful for you in using the plugin. So we definitely welcome any feedback or questions you may have. So please get back to us and let us know what you think of the plugin. If you want to see anything added to it, anything changed, we'd be happy to accommodate. Thanks for listening. Goodbye.